Hi, I'm Katherine Schwab. I'm a senior editor here at Forbes focused on technology. I'm here with Alan Ohnsman, senior editor who covers transportation. Hi, Alan. You
Hi,
just
Catherine.
wrote a great story about this problem that I hadn't heard of, tire dust that is killing fish and just wreaking havoc in the environment. What is the deal with tire dust and why is it so deadly? Why is it such a big problem?
So it turns out that, for decades, governments have been regulating tailpipe exhaust and more recently CO2 emissions. So those are things we really understand well. But there is this entirely different class of non-exhaust emissions, and it's tire dust, the wear and tear of petroleum-based rubber tires on the road puts millions and millions of tons into the air and into the water every year. And some researchers up in Washington State have taken this research even farther because there has been, for some time now, a drop in the population of coho salmon raised in Washington. And they were trying to figure out what is killing these fish, because specifically the coho were dying. Some other fish did not seem to be dying. And through many years of research and process of elimination of suspect elements, what they discovered was the tire dust getting into stormwater that then rolls into creeks and streams and then rivers, that it contains this tire dust, but that tire dust is also coated with a chemical called 6-PPD. And when that chemical reacts with pollution in the air, ozone, it makes a new toxic substance called 6-PPD quinone. And that turns out to be deadly for coho salmon. They've also learned that this may also be affecting Chinook and possibly steelhead salmon populations as well. So it's a major problem. And this is very new research. This is only within about the last 2 to 3 years where it's been well understood that this is happening. And the challenge is, unlike what's coming out of your tailpipe, or the types of fuels you're using, there's no regulation for tire dust. It just sort of has caught regulators, off guard, it seems.
So, why is this chemical integrated into the tires anyway? What does it do, and why is it so deadly for?
So I guess what I learned from the tire industry and other researchers was after World War II, 6-PPD came into use because it helps preserve tires and helps keep tires from breaking down so quickly and cracking. Tires, we call them rubber, but it's not actually rubber. It's not organic rubber. It's a synthetic rubber made mainly out of petroleum. And it resembles rubble, but it does break down rather quickly. So 6-PPD was a chemical that was applied to keep the tires, help them last longer and not break down. It doesn't appear, though, that the industry understood what happens to this chemical on the tires when it mixes with the ambient air, when it mixes with elements in the environment in road use. And it's what does seem to be clear is this is definitely affecting the coho salmon. Is it affecting humans? Is it affecting other forms of life, other sea life? We don't know yet. And there's a lot of research going into that now. Traces of 6-PPD are found in humans. So we are absorbing it either through the air or consumption of fish. So, it's all over the place.
So you mentioned that there are no regulations about this dust or this chemical. Why is that? I mean, this seems like a really big problem and an element of transportation pollution that is just not really widely known at all. What are regulators doing about this?
That's why there is no regulation. This is fairly new. It has been known for some time that tires created dust. What was not understood was, is it harmful? And it turns out, yeah, it is. So at the moment, there is no regulation. The first opening shot here comes in California. By mid-year, July 1st, the California Department of Toxic Substances is enacting a new regulation that will list 6-PPD as what they call a priority product. And basically what this means is it's been identified as something that has problems, and it's telling the industry, please start looking for an alternative, find a replacement, do something else, reformulate the tires. There is no forcing mechanism in it, though. It does not require any immediate change. It simply asks manufacturers, please begin the process of finding an alternative. I spoke with the tire industry. They say, yes, we're concerned about this issue, but is there a near-term fix or change? Not according to what they told me. They are investigating the matter. They clearly have chemists and engineers, so with any luck, they will be able to offer a safer alternative reasonably soon. But a lot of the folks affected by this are not optimistic, and they don't expect tires to change, this decade. That this could be a problem that won't be solved for 10 to 15 years. And the question is, will some of these salmon populations survive that long? We may not have 10 to 15 years for the coho salmon. And if it's affecting other fish, this would be a very serious problem. So it is a little, frustrating for a lot of folks that there's no near-term solution. There's no near-term regulation.
So can't manufacturers just use something else, or maybe use natural rubber? Or, what are the solutions that are being looked at right now if like an exact replica chemical that could do something similar with less toxic effects is not anywhere close to being in use?
In the near term, the simplest option is drive less and drive a lighter vehicle, because it turns out that the heavy vehicles create a lot more dust. Natural rubber, there is not enough supply globally, and that was why the world switched to petroleum-based rubber instead of using the natural stuff. We just don't grow enough of it. There is natural rubber in certain types of tires. One of the researchers I spoke with mentioned that heavy trucks, like 18-wheelers, which are the heaviest class of vehicles, their tires are more expensive. They actually contain a higher amount of natural rubber, which doesn't produce the same toxic element. So those tires actually don't make as much dust. The concern is we're shifting to electric vehicles, and electric vehicles have no tailpipe emissions at all. There's no tailpipe. That's great. But it turns out a lot of them are much heavier than regular gasoline-powered cars and light trucks. And so there is concern that EVs will actually be a bigger source of this type of automotive pollution than regular gasoline cars. Other types of solutions that are being looked at, there is a startup in the UK that has an ionic filter that basically clamps on behind the rear wheels, and it's collecting dust as it's generated. It's sort of clever. They're trying to develop this as an aftermarket solution so it can be added to existing vehicles. They are in testing of that now, but whether that's scalable and you can get that on the road for hundreds of millions of automobiles and trucks around the world, the odds of that aren't great. There are options to reformulate the tires. There's a form of synthetic rubber or organic rubber that's actually made from some form of dandelion, I'm told, but that's still in the laboratory. So it's not clear, will that be ready for prime time anytime soon? Not likely. My suspicion, and I don't know this, but the tire industry has been making this stuff for a long time. They have armies of chemists and engineers. One might think that perhaps they actually do have some alternatives available, but won't shift to them until they actually have to because of rules and regulations. So we'll see how things play out. But that would not be at all surprising if in fact they already have some alternatives in the works.
That makes a lot of sense. I think what's so harrowing and upsetting about this story is I had no idea that this was a type of pollution coming from all types of vehicles. And there's no regulation. There's very little awareness about this. Hopefully through your reporting and stories like this and, raising awareness with lawmakers, we can start to see a little bit more movement and pushing the industry to.
Yeah, I would say, I've been covering transportation for a very long time, and I was entirely unaware of it until about 2 years ago. And the first study I saw kind of shocked me, and this was by the San Francisco Estuary Institute. They study water quality in the San Francisco Bay. And in a a really surprising study that they published in 2020. They found that the top source of microplastic pollution in San Francisco Bay was tire dust. And it was by far the biggest source of that. And I had no clue. And that was very shocking. Microplastic pollution globally is a real problem. You know, single-use plastics and things. We have the garbage of plastic in the middle of the ocean that keeps growing, and we have to do something about it. But to discover that actually the number one or number two source of this is automotive tires, had no clue. So yeah, it is a big problem, and it's something that certainly it would seem regulators need to be looking at very intensely.
Thank you so much, Alan, for joining us.
Thank you.